Today I'm going to show you two different ways to open a padlock using a drinks can. You may have seen me use these before. These are a set of lock picks. There's a whole range of different picks and torsion bars. And we can use these to pick a padlock. I'll show you on this transparent one. If you want more information on how to pick the lock, you can take a look at my previous video which gives a detailed explanation. There's a link in the description. So the first way we're going to try getting into the lock with the Coke can is to replicate these tools from the can's metal. So I emptied out the can, used a knife and scissors to cut the can like this, to give us a flat sheet of metal. If you try this, do be careful not to cut yourself, you might want to wear gloves. I cut a strip off the bottom to remove the sharp burrs. Because this metal is so thin and won't be very strong, I folded it over to increase the thickness. I used some pliers to crimp the fold over, and it already feels a lot more rigid. Next we want to try and emulate the shape of the pick. So I used some scissors to cut the metal into a similar shape, with the fold at the bottom. You can see that the profile is actually a lot bigger. And the neck isn't as long either, but I wanted to start by making it as chunky as possible to retain as much strength as I can. If necessary, I can always cut it down in size. But I tried it in the lock and it does let me lift all the pins. And it also reaches the back of the lock. I used the torsion bar from the lock picking set to see if I could open the lock like this. It took a little bit of fiddling, as it always does, but I was able to lift up all the pins above the shear point, turn the barrel and open the lock. So we know the pick itself works. Now we need to try making one of these torsion bars. It's got to be able to transmit a fair bit of force, so I'm folding this part of the can over again to make it even stronger. I cut it off with my scissors, then used pliers to crimp it, and folded the top over too. If we measure this one up against the original, you can see it really is a lot chunkier. But let's see if I can get it to work. I slid it into the end of the barrel and tried to insert the pick. But sadly there just wasn't enough space for them both. I used my scissors to make it a bit shorter and also thin it down a bit. So it looks like this. I inserted it into the lock and this time I was able to insert the pick as well. It was pretty tight trying to manoeuvre it inside. And it took a little while, but I did manage to open the lock. Pretty cool, huh? They do feel rather fragile, these tools. They bend a bit, and they don't have the strength of the originals. But it did work. And if you wanted to, you could tape over the metal to make some neater handles. If we take a closer look at how the padlock works, when we put the key in and turn it, it pulls back the latches. Which lock into recesses in the shackle when the lock is closed. Turning the key pulls back the latches, and the shackle pops open. Some locks have a latch at each end, like this one, and some only have one. The next way to open the lock using our drinks can is to make our own shims to hold back the latches. I'm using my scissors to cut this shape from the metal, and I rounded off the corners of this lug. I folded this part over here to give it more strength, and added a little curl. To open the lock, we slide this down alongside of the shackle like this. Then rotate it to push back the latch. It really is straightforward. I made another one for the other side, inserted this one in the same way, and pushed back the latch. And there we have it, our lock is open. It's quite a simple and crude way to open a lock, and it can be really quick. If you have a small lock, you'd find it difficult to open it with our homemade picks. But easy enough with the shims. You can see this lock only has a latch at one end. So that's two different ways to open a lock with a drinks can. As a final test, I thought I'd put each method up against the clock to see which one's quickest and how long they take. Let's start with the shims. This method took me about 10 seconds to crack the lock open. That really is pretty quick. Now let's see how long it takes using our homemade pick. This method is far more cumbersome. Getting the torsion bar and the pick inside the lock is really tight for space. Then of course we've got to line up all the pins. The tools feel like you're going to bend them. They're pretty flimsy. And I'm going to speed this footage up because it's taking some time. And there we are. In total, it took about 55 seconds. So an awful lot longer. And I was starting to think I wasn't even going to get it open. If you like this clear padlock and you want to see where you can buy one, there's a link in the description. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you want to see more, you can click on the links or take a look at my YouTube channel page. Stay safe, have fun, and as always, thanks for watching.